Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the 12th. I think Nick lied and told everyone it was 13, but it's 12th.
Yeah, no, it's a complete fabrication.
12th edition of IAOA's COLLABCAST, and it's been one heck of a long time since we've seen everybody. So I hope you all have been doing well. It's literally 6 months since we've been on this on the air. What the heck you been doing, Nick? Why don't you do something with your life? I know I've been just sitting here.
Yeah, no, I'm just a lazy bum. Right?
Sitting here pining away, waiting to hear from you. But as always, my name is Adam Serwinski, and I'm joined by Nick Ayers. And like we just talked about, he actually is proof that, distance makes the heart go fonder, Nick. I haven't seen you since Innovate. And it's been...
I start calling you Jason Cass. Nobody seems to be able to get the names of anything we do correct. It's not Innovate. It's innovation.
Innovation.
If we could just get people to pronounce IAOA what it is and not call it EIEIO, not call it Innovate, not call it IAOA 2020, that's the biggest challenge. This is the biggest challenge is getting people we've been calling it innovation now for 4 years, and people still call it IA 20. I'm like, what is this nonsense? Travis was there in Vegas. Travis was a speaker in Vegas.
He was, but he's also featured. He was a big deal. He was a big winner. He wore his ball down. He was a big deal there, Travis.
Did. I appreciate that. Well, blowing my head up. I'm going to have trouble getting through the door.
Don't think we don't see it on the desk behind you. You have your daily polishing session where you just sit there and
8:37 a.m.
That part of it's automated. That your daily reminder is coming through from your Google.
Was that fun? Was that fun for you? Did you enjoy presenting in Vegas?
Or was it no, I actually had a blast. I used to be a teacher. I taught high school for 4 years, so
I didn't know that.
It's kind of a natural. Both my parents were teachers, and so teaching something it's enjoyable. I like helping people with that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed it. Yeah,
I would tell you one of the most impressive things I saw was people trying to find room at your table during the breakdowns. I mean, there were literally people. One guy shattered a beer bottle and was going to shank.
You're a rock star, man.
I mean, literally at the table, you couldn't find room. People were climbing over the top, and then there was, neophyte me trying to understand the level of discussion that you guys were having. Just gave up and decided to go back look at the hiring tables.
I hesitated to go to that table because I wanted to pick everybody else's brain. That's what I do. I want to see what everybody else is doing, and it got crazy.
Yeah. No, I remember looking out from stage and thinking, man, look at Travis, man, he's a rock star. Yeah. That kind of fits well with you, man. I mean, you're kind of this, you're kind of this, at least from my perspective, you're this kind of enigma, kind of, you're very, you can't keep to yourself a little bit, I think, or you stay kind of indifferent, when I look at Travis, I see someone who's kind of, I call him kind of like a maverick. You just kind of, you kind of cut your own trail there and kind of march to the beat of your own drum. And I think it's attractive to a lot of people. A lot of people seem to like that. And, they follow a lot of what you say and what you do because, you do, going back to that teacher, and you are very helpful and you help a lot of people. And it's really cool.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean,
but plus his regularly salt and pepper hair. That's what really pulls them all in. Is that gray hair just has this level of authenticity, I think. But
someone recently said I look like George Clooney, and I was like, I don't know if I'd go that far.
Yeah, George Clooney's a little skinnier than you. I think
I do like to eat. We got really good barbecue here in Kansas City.
I wasn't going to say that you were fat. I was going to say that you are
big bone.
You're more you're rocked out. You're more. You got traps and stuff. George Clooney doesn't have traps.
Oh, I did lift weights once.
That's a win.
Me too.
All right, well, let's get to the topic everyone wants to talk about, Travis. So, obviously, people talk to you and see you as kind of a leader in the automation and kind of streamline, process setting of our component of our kind of business flows. And so, if you were to talk to an agency who's got that blank slate, let's just start there about how they should kind of establish their agency if they wanted to move towards something automated, like you talk about and like you somewhat preach, I think, through what you talk through, what you share, what you do. What would you tell that agent at that stage one, and how would you kind of mentor them from that place?
Well, I wish I would have had someone actually, guide me when I got started 12 years ago. It's one of those things that when you get going, you don't have time to think. You just kind of react to the business of the day. But writing down what you're doing is kind of a key fundamental piece just to kind of get things going. Because if you're just kind of like reacting, next thing you know, it's going to be 8 years later and you're going to be like, okay, I got to teach somebody else how to do this stuff. So, I mean, just developing your processes, it's going to evolve over time, but it's one of those things that it's just always continual. It never stays the same because our industry changes and it continues to change every single day. And so should your process. So getting that down on paper, get a scratch note pad, get a Word document on your computer, and just do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just start documenting how you go through the process. And that will pay dividends in the end.
I'm really curious, Travis. Where did you get started with all this? And like, why did you see this as like, how does this relate to your agency? And why is it such a critical component? You think about technology, you think about automation. 5 years ago, nobody like automation was such a foreign concept, and now automation is so deep and so vast now. Where did you get started, and how did you see its role in your agency early on?
I've always loved technology. I actually, when I went to college, I decided I wanted to be a computer programmer until I was 2 weeks into the class. And if anybody's ever programmed, there's always a comma or like a period or something in the wrong spot, and it'll just destroy your whole program. So I decided that programming wasn't for me. And so when I got into the agency side, I actually started venturing into the automation side probably about 4 years ago. Some of the people that I talk to, I tell them I've actually been with Infusionsoft 3 times because I started 4 years ago with Infusionsoft, had a coach that was terrible. I knew the power of what having a consistent process that just triggered things on the back end could do, because there's so many things that we do over and over and over again. It's the same thing. It just started driving me nuts because I was like, I got to type this stupid email again. Yeah. And it wasn't stupid as in it's not appreciated or not needed. It was stupid as in it took me another 5 minutes.
Just redundancy.
Again, yeah. And so that's when I was like, there's got to be a way to trigger this to where I don't have to think about it. And then early on, as I'm growing as a business owner, I had some staff that I loved them as people, but they weren't consistent. And so I was like, okay, so how can I make the experience for my consumer buying stuff from our office get the same result across the board? And it just kind of evolved from there to where I was like, okay, how can we just start just simply with an onboarding campaign, just welcoming people to our office? Because we were getting people from all other, they come from State Farm or Farmers or wherever else. And obviously that business model is different than what we do. And so how can I tell them all at the same time how we're different and who they should talk to and where they should go for information? And that triggered our onboarding campaign, our welcome packet. If you go to the Safeco Customer for Life program, that was one of the first things that we triggered after I had that piece put in place. I went to that program and I'm like, oh, welcome packet. Drop a big packet in the mail. Well, I made it to where after the email went out, task got sent to an employee that said, hey, you should mail out this packet. And so it not only triggered emails, it told us what to do in the office when we should do it based on whatever criteria we set up. And so it's just built from there. And I even joke around that I've burnt my system down 3 times. Your post today in the group was spot on. People don't realize how many times we fail at things. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I've failed more than anybody out there. But that's how you make progress. That's how you learn. That's how you get somewhere new.
And I think most people, what separates you and what you're doing from most people, and this is true of anybody, insert mechanism here. I think what separates you and what you do from most people is that when you failed, you didn't just stop and say, this isn't for me, right? You determined, you made a choice that this is going to be what you're going to do. And you were intentional about how you were going to do it, and it evolved from there. I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would assume that what you have right now as of May 21st, 2019 is not what you started with 4 years ago as far as a process.
No.
Right. And I would probably also say that what you're going to have May 21st, 2023 is going to be different than what you have today, right? It's continuously evolving, and it's continuously getting better. But when you talk about in your agency, you saw this need, kind of there are people out there who are, I think when they look at automation, it's one of those topics that they get so overwhelmed. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. It's like a lot of other topics, it's like marketing, or it's like getting a designation like a CPCU. Like people look at something and they get so overwhelmed by it. If you were talking with somebody today and they're thinking, Travis, I'm a 1 or 2 man shop, and I'm either new or I've been doing this a long time, I have nothing. Like, what would be, in your mind, knowing what you know now, what would be the first thing that you would encourage them to do to add to the repertoire when it comes to an automation sequence?
Well, and I think we probably should go back to the word automation, because that it's such a broad term that a lot of people think of automation as in, I've got this massive system, but it could be something as simple as having a link on your website to a calendar scheduling system that they can program to set appointments for specific types of meetings that your clients can go in and just click and schedule an appointment on their own. You're not doing anything. The computer's doing it with the scheduling system. So it can be as simple as that. And so if you're new, think about what are the things that take your time. And for us, one of the issues that I spotted early on was we were playing phone tag. We would have phone tags back and forth with clients, and I was like, man, I wish we could just schedule these phone calls. Well, online calendar scheduling system, we shot them a link in an email, said, hey, we're having trouble getting connected. So here's a link for a 15-minute phone call. Pick a time that works for you, and it'll put it on my calendar. Something as simple as that. For others, you kind of have to, because everybody's office is different. We're all in insurance, but we all operate different. That's the beautiful piece about being independent is we're together, but not the same. So everybody's system is going to be different. Everybody's process is going to be different. It could be something like, for us, one of the things that we actually got from one of the last conferences, actually it was the first one, not this past January, but the previous January, and I can't remember who it was, but they presented on putting forms on their website.
It was Adam.
Was it Adam?
Yeah.
Either Adam or Elliot.
Well, for service requests?
Elliot was 2 years ago, and then I was last year talking about automating it for intake. But yeah,
it was Elliot.
Yep, Elliot was.
Yeah, and he talked about it, and that was the first thing I implemented when I came back because it seemed like such a simple thing that I could do. It took me a weekend to build out a simple form. It wasn't the best form, but we got a form up, and it started collecting information on if people wanted to change their autos. And what I found in the beginning was we actually started using it internally more than the consumer did. So our first revision of it was people would call in, by the way, we've got this on our website now, but I'll go ahead and fill it out for you. And we would fill out the form internally on behalf of the client. And then we spotted, okay, we need to add this question here. And we got our form to where it was more perfected. But now most of our clients go there before they even call us now. And so that's another piece is it gives them the self-serve. It comes in and goes into our ticketing system so we can track it. I now have documentation of what the client wanted. Just another little thing that you can get started that provides your consumer something that they can do on their own. If they want to, they can still call us, but if they want to, they can fill it out themselves. And that's a small form of automation because now it takes it, it documents it, it puts it where it should go so somebody can follow up on it.
What are you working on now? I mean, we start with the simple, but what do you, let's just give people, I want to give people some context, right? You started with an online calendar, went to some online forms. If you could just, that 1,000-foot view, what are the things that you're automating right now in your agency from either a sales and service standpoint, internally, however it works? What are some of the things that you've got going on right now at the agency?
So along with those things, we also automate the initial contact that we get from people that come to our website. So there's a sequence that follows up with them based on what they want. So if they, schedule in there that they want an auto and home, proposal from us, then they get an email back that they get the choice of either scheduling the appointment or they can fill out our protection review. On the service side, once that information comes in from the form now for a policy change, for example, I actually have it go into our management system. It creates the task. It documents the actual request from the client. It sends them a text message that said, hey, we got your service request. You'll get the information from the company once it's processed in the next 7 to 10 business days. In the meantime, if you got questions, let us know. But the task is created in our management system now. So now I can track, okay, who did I assign it to? And now I can track how long it takes for me to get it done, or that person to get it done, if whoever it's assigned to. So on the service side, now we have a tracking mechanism built into it. You get policy renewal reminders. So people, for some reason, don't know that their policy is coming up for renewal. So just a simple email that says, hey, your policy is coming up for renewal.
Yeah.
It's not complex. We get an account review offer that we send out to our clients. So based on the first letter of their last name, we assign them to a month to do a protection review. And our goal with that is to not talk about price, just purely talk about coverages, their lifestyle, and how those two things get meshed together, and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, plant seeds for things that maybe they should consider purchasing down the road. But it's a friendly conversation is the goal. Unfortunately, most people don't take advantage of it, but it's an automated communication from us that says, hey, you can do it. And I am getting ready to add into that communication the opportunity for them to fill the form out themselves online. So if they didn't want to schedule it with us, at minimum, they can fill out a form.
Most what you're doing is by email, correct?
Most of it is.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the day to get connected to Facebook Messenger. But we do send out text messages to let them know, like, hey, we just shot you an email. Check that out.
So, Travis, one of the things that I think too, that when you were talking earlier about writing out your processes, people feel you have to fix everything at once. But now that you're talking about what you're actually implementing, it sounds like you can truncate this. Like you can look at things and say, this piece is what I want to perfect. Is that a fair way to go into it? Like just make your check boxes, fix smaller things. It's not this overarching first from day one until you're 30 that you have this customer that you need to automate right from the beginning. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, totally. Because, I mean, if you think about, and we were talking about this earlier, you know, roadmap driving from here to Kansas City over to St. Louis, how many mile marker signs do you pass by? Well, each one of those is a new stage in the journey, if you think about it that way. And so you can have just something happening during the first mile of that transaction. You know, so that's what we did was we built the form on the website, was stage one or mile one. And then once I had the capacity to connect that to my management system, you know, then I put in a piece, stage two, that did the communication from the form and bridged it over and created the task in the management system. And so you add as you go. It doesn't have to be a all as one type of deal. And that goes back to things evolving too, because how many times have if you could just see over my shoulder, how many times I've screwed something up in programming this and it didn't work the way I wanted it to. And I had to come back and, okay, that didn't work. Let's try it this way.
Now, so just to take another step too, and Nick kind of got to it, they become overwhelmed. But I think another piece is just fear, right? Fear of screwing up with the client relation. Like if this email becomes automated and it's going every day, is that too much friction with the client? Fear of screwing it up and having it damage your reputation with your client. How would you recommend someone who's never done automation before to kind of dab their toe and step in maybe a sandbox or some kind of safer play?
Just do it. There's nothing like jumping in a cold pool without just jumping in a cold pool. And one of my favorite stories is I actually did that with one, and I mistakenly sent out an email, and I thought it was a test email, but I actually sent it out to my entire list. Luckily, it happened to be, can you give us a review on Google email? And it went to a bunch of people that I didn't want it to go to yet because I was still working on it. And we ended up getting like 7 reviews out of it.
Let me, I want to kind of delve into something a little bit more philosophical. Now, I have my opinions on this, but I'd be curious to get yours on this. At what point do you think automation goes too far in our business, especially in a very personable industry where relationships matter. Um, where do you see the line where too much can be too much?
That is a great question, and I see it all the time, and it concerns me because I think a lot of people try to automate too much.
They want
Automation,
to automate for the sake of automation. It sounds like.
right? So you don't want to automate yourself out of a job because this is a relationship piece. And how's any of the insurance companies? I mean, if they truly wanted to, that's what a lot of them are trying to do in the direct market. So it's not here to make your life easier. It's here to improve the customer experience, is my opinion. You know, how can you make the customer's life better, faster, stronger, but at the same time provide that consistency to them that they're expecting? Because we're small offices for the most part, but the consumer compares us to major corporations.
Right.
And so it's really a bridge to help us kind of level the playing field almost and act a little bit bigger than we are, and give them some services that we wouldn't have been able to give them before. But it should be there to enhance your experience in the relationship that you have with the consumer.
Yeah, but do you see that the way that the trend is moving, that it's almost like we've unlocked Pandora's box, and now um, it's almost like we're trying to stop something that can't be stopped. I mean,
The Terminator's coming.
yeah, well, I mean, in the sense that from people's, I would say our own industry's behavior, right? I mean,
Right.
it's for years, for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been automation, automation, automation. It's one of those buzzwords. I mean, automation, VAs, marketing, right? They seem to be like the three, the holy trinity of like what everybody wants to talk about. And so when when we talk about automation, it's almost like we've kind of opened up the floodgates on that, and now it's almost to the point like, how do you reverse? Like, does something cataclysmic need to happen for us to go back, or how do we undo kind of a lot of the messaging or the momentum that we've said? Okay, we've got to automate everything. What are people supposed to do at that point?
I think it just needs to be put in perspective on, and the answer I think is going to be slightly different for everybody. What's too far for you? Because some people's business model is, I don't want to ever talk to the client again. I don't think that's the right way to go. I think in the long run, you're going to hurt the value of your agency, because at some point in time, they're going to need help and you're not there to help. But too much automation causes things to break down also. We actually tried to refer to a partner agency across the country. One of our clients was moving, and they're one that automates quite a bit, and we couldn't ever get the client connected with them because it was too automated.
Yeah.
Nobody was there to pick up the phone and answer it, or nobody, I don't know where it dropped the ball because I never got a hold of them, but it was one of those things that we were trying to send business. This is a great client. We're trying to move them over. And because you rely too much on the system, I couldn't even pass business to you. So it can help grow business, but it could also hurt you if you're not.
Yeah, I think where it hurts is that it's not like the systems that we deal with are great systems. I mean, we have to, in our industry, we have to Frankenstein everything together, right? It's not like we have,
Right.
one or two main. It's not like we can say, okay, we're going to do everything in Infusionsoft. I use ActiveCampaign, and I try to do a lot in ActiveCampaign, but I can't do everything in ActiveCampaign. I have a management system. I have a voice over IP. I have all these things that I've got to kind of make this clunky Frankenstein machine out of for automation. And the risk that things, to Adam's point, that things just don't go right, they break or they break down, is so high. And do you really want to put all your eggs in that basket? I feel like you're trying to walk like a rope bridge across this gorge, and it's like falling apart. Like it's so risky, and people are so adamant they just want to run 100 miles in that direction. I think it's kind of scary, actually.
Yeah, I agree. It can be scary, and especially when you don't know like what the end game is. I think a lot of people jump in and say, I want these systems, without knowing exactly what they want them to do.
Well, they're hot. They're like cars.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think, Travis, too, to the point, like, and I think Nick and we're all talking about this in a way, but all of these tools don't necessarily affect what makes every business work, right? What makes our agencies great is different in everything. It's what's the opportunity of being an independent agent. Like, you can focus on different things. You can have your different niche, but automation, marketing, and all the other pieces that we put out there, the goal in evaluating them, I think, has to be, how does this make me better at what I'm doing? Not how do I become this automation piece? Is that fair? Because it sounds to me like you look at automation from a way of, how is it going to make my team more efficient? How is it going to make me be able to do what I do best more, or do what I do better? Not, I'm just going to automate for the sake of automation, because that, and I think, is the wrong end goal. Is that fair? I mean, that's like my takeaway from hearing the two of you kind of banter on this. The problem of it is that when people think of it as the end, as opposed to a means to being a better agent or better agency.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because there's been a couple agencies that I've talked to that it was one of those situations where they thought they would be able to reduce staff, or change their business model a little bit. And my caution back to them was, don't use this to reduce staff. Use this to free up time so you can talk to the client more, cross-sell more. It's just an efficiency thing. And the follow-up is, it should make your business more streamlined, because now you have a workflow that everybody has to follow, the consistency of it. That's really the biggest value. You should be able to use it to identify process improvements on how your business should improve. Not just blast the consumer with 40,000 different pieces of, stuff.
Yeah, that's a quick way to get unsubscribed really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, another thing that you talk a lot on, and you're kind of, I'd say kind of carving, a path in, blazing a trail, is in local SEO. I see you talk a lot about this, and frankly, I think this is where insurance agents have to play, right? They have to. This is the game, the money ball that they have to play, that we all have to play. We can't hardly compete in a SEO world so much with your massive players, right? Your Geicos, your Progressives, your State Farms. But you can niche down specifically into your local market really, really well, in a place that those players just can't play. Talk a little bit about, that on your end, what kind of got you into that, and, maybe if you can just give the one or two things that you think, okay, if you're not doing this, you need to do this simple thing. This is where you need to get started.
So I completely agree with what you said. We can't compete with the massive companies out there. And there's two different ways you can be found on the web. One is having a website that, what I would classify as an expert type of, they look to you because you are an authority figure, which we immediately have that taken away from us, because we're not insurance companies.
Right.
The insurance companies providing the insurance, they're the authority because they're providing it. So we can try to be a semi-authority, but they're still going to look at us as a secondary, which is why every time you look in, you go to Google, you do a search, the first 3 or 4 listings on there are going to be paid ads. And then the next couple listings, if you're searching for something that triggers a local search, it'll be the map. We call it the map pack. And then underneath that, then you have 3 or 4 we call it organic, because that's what your actual search term was for. And typically that's the State Farm, Farmers, Allied, Nationwide, all those Safeco companies pop in there because they're the authority figure. And then the bottom 4, sections are 4 more ads from Google, because that's how they make their money. So the only thing that we have the control is that map pack, because that is Google's way of saying, if you're searching for somebody locally, here's the people in your area that fit this description. And whether people like it or not, Google basically controls all. Mm-hmm. Whether it's right or wrong is.
I tell people Google is your dad. It's daddy.
It is daddy. You gotta be nice too, because if you don't play by Google's rules, then Google doesn't share your name with everybody else. So definitely getting found on Google, the easiest way is through that map pack, and that's the local search. So having Google My Business is critical. You can go to Google or business.google.com, and if you don't have your own, get that started. Just need a Gmail account, create an account, fill it out, and fill it out as completely as you can with images. If you got videos, you can throw in there, put your hours, list everything out as completely as you can. And that will help you get set up to where you can be found in that local search. And then from there, what most people don't realize is as soon as you have that set up, Google will send you on a monthly basis an email that says, here's how many times you've been found in the search result. Mm-hmm. And the truth is that's actually replacing your website. So it's good to have a website because that's a verification factor that Google uses. But people spending $5,000 and $10,000 on a website, unless you're driving people to that website, you also need to consider the fact that you should be spending some money towards getting found on the Google side, because the Google is just scraping information and people aren't even getting to your website anymore because they're clicking call now or get directions now from that map listing. Yeah. So if you're a local based agency, that's the critical piece that you need to start paying attention to.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, it depends on what your agency model is, right? And I tell people all the time, if Google's asking for it, give it to them. So like you mentioned, if they're asking for photos, give them photos. If they ask for, nothing is optional. It's all optional, right, but really nothing is optional. Give them photos, give them videos. If you can have them do a walkthrough, like one of those 360 tours in your office, do that. If they're asking for posts every 7 days, do that. If they're asking, and the cool thing that I do sometimes on mine is I'll just take testimonials from my Google reviews and I'll just make those into posts.
Right.
It's just another way for me to show an image of a testimonial in that. And so it's really helpful. So if YouTube is asking for it, give it to them. If Google's asking for it, give it to them. Like whatever they want, like just figure out a way to give them that information. Now, I think it really depends on your agency model, right? So, if you have a local agency, this is important and you have to rely on this. The other way that people are going to get to your website is with driving traffic with ads, which is what I have to do, right? I don't have a local office that people are going to come to. My address on my thing is my house. So nobody's coming to my house.
You don't want them coming to your house.
I don't want them coming to my house. If they show up at my house, the policy is, it's $100,000 right off the bat to stay here. So, right. So if your model is one that you're the local agent, or you have a brick and mortar location, or you have a presence and you're not on Google My Business, if you haven't completed that, you have to do that immediately.
It's critical.
So Nick and Travis, let's take that one step further. So if someone feels like let's say they created the Google My Business page, but they don't know these deficiencies. They don't know if Google's asking them for 7 posts every 7 days or photos or whatever, where they're lacking. How does that, where do they go to look for that? Like, I think that's a real question. I think people are going.
When you make, I'll let Travis answer this, but I mean, when you typically, when you make a post, as an example, it'll tell you your post is expiring,
right,
and to post another one.
Right. And Google's starting to send out emails that said, hey, other businesses like you are posting, and they're giving you examples of what other people are posting because they're encouraging you to post.
Yeah, they want that content because really they want to enhance the search experience too, right? Like Facebook, like they all the same way. They want people on the platform as much as humanly possible, and they want it to be that go-to source. So they want to enhance that experience on its platform by giving it good content that's relevant to the user experience. So posts, testimonials.
So are you seeing those flags when you go into the Google My Business page, or are they coming to you in those emails? So I'm just being really kind of nuts and bolts on this, because I think probably a lot of people are thinking, I don't know if my post expired or even how to make a post. So is it part of your process then, as this SEO challenge, to go into your Google My Business page on a daily, weekly, monthly basis?
It should be, whether you do it or you have somebody in your office do it. I actually prefer to have somebody else do it because it's one less thing that I have to be worried about. And for most offices, you've got somebody younger that is better at the social media than most people.
Bro. You're only 31, man.
Well, thank you. But no, I still like doing it. Don't get me wrong, because I like to hear myself talk. But it's one of those things that's, as business owners, we all do so many zillions of things just in the morning. So take that one little thing and just give somebody access to and say, hey, create a post, just like you do with the Facebook. Have them post. You can post the same thing. Post it on Facebook and the Google post. The difference is one's inside of Facebook, one's on the web. Yeah. I mean, we don't make it complicated. You can use the same information and regurgitate the same information over and over again. You know, something you posted 3 weeks ago, as long as it's not time sensitive, you can use that again in a couple of months.
True or false, Travis? Whatever
True.
you have listed on your wow, okay. Whatever you have listed on your whatever you have listed on your website, and whatever you have listed on other areas, those things need to match exactly. Like Google, it needs to be a perfect harmony of like character for character, space for space. Everything needs to match. Website to Google listing to what you put in your Yelp to what you put in your like other directories. Like everything needs to match to send that perfect matching signal to Google. True or false?
True, because Google's dumb. Google doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
If you take the internet away, Google knows nothing, because Google goes out and finds the information out there. So I call that the Google Trust Score, and their likelihood of showing you in the search result depends on how much they trust your information. So if you go into your Google My Business page and you fill out all this information, does it match anything else on the web?
Yeah.
And your website.
If you say your hours are 8 to 6 on Google, but 9 to 5 on Yelp, that's a problem.
Yeah, because Google reads ones and zeros. That's computer language. It's either on or off. Does it match or does it not match? There is no, well, we think it's the same thing. Google doesn't do that. Does it match? Yes, we're good. And so having that information the exact same across the web is critical. And when you do that, and that's why I tell people to start with Google My Business, but pay attention how Google lists your address, for example. So our office address is Suite 102, but when I search for it in Google, it's actually the pound sign. So it's pound 102. They don't use the word suite. So just something simple like that could throw off your ranking.
Yep.
And so it's not only just on your website, it's make sure your Facebook business page has the exact same thing. It's the same on Yelp. It's, look at all the major directories across the web. There's 60 of them that you should pay attention to. And I can post a link to all of them later. But those 60 Google uses to judge whether you're being truthful in your Google My Business page.
Would you recommend a third-party service just to take care of that for you? Something like Moz or a White Spark or something like that to just handle all those things for you?
I would. It's a lot easier. And the reality with the internet is things change. And so the benefit to using a third-party system is it helps lock that information in. Because with pretty much any directory, you can go in and you can leave a review. You can say, correct this business listing. This information's not accurate. This business is closed. You can go submit change requests. And if you don't have a third-party system that locks that information in there, you'll go out and fill out Yelp, for example. And then 3 weeks later, somebody will get pissed and mark your business as closed. And unless you go back and look, you won't have a listing because they'll be like, oh, well, nobody responded. So yeah, it must be closed. So you can find data inaccuracies without using, an additional program to help you with that.
What is this Yelp thing you guys talk about?
The mafia. But what Travis is talking about and what we're kind of referencing is if you're watching this, you can utilize a third-party service to take care of a lot of these things like Moz, local, so MOZ, logo. Just do a Google search for that. Or I actually use White Spark. I pay a little bit more and everything's manually done, which is just what I kind of like. And I think they do even more citations if I'm not mistaken. But you can use those services to kind of make sure so you're not going site to site, all however many directories are to make it all the same. It'll just do it for you.
But if you're a startup agency, you're watching TV at night, go start filling them out yourself. If you can't afford the extra couple $100, I mean, if you need to stay lean, there's no harm in going and doing it yourself.
Moz gives you a report, right? Like they'll tell you what pages you are either listed or unlisted on. Like there's a couple websites that will give you reports just on which sites you're showing up on. Is that accurate? I mean, I could be wrong.
There's several out there that do that.
What are you seeing right now? I would imagine that there's a different. The reason why it's so important is there's a different level of intent when somebody is searching for you online, clicks on your information because they see you as one or two in the map pack, There's a different level of trust and rapport. So when they're calling you, I mean, it's, we talk about paid advertising, we talk about this, we talk about all kinds of other ways to drive business. If you're not prioritizing this, I mean, these next to like realtor or mortgage referrals, these are probably some of the warmest referrals that you'll get online, is by just making sure that you nail this down.
If somebody calls us from that, they're in the mood. They're ready to go.
You've got to mess it up. It's got to be something you've got to pretty much mess it up. It's either got to be an underwriting issue, or you've got to mess it up for it not to work.
Right. I mean, outside of a price shopper, which they're going to call everybody under the sun, but anybody that goes online, finds you in the map pack, they're looking at your reviews, they're already bought into whatever you're communicating online. And so you do have to screw it up. We closed a $15,000 personal lines account 3 weeks ago because they found us online. They read through all our reviews, and she was begging me to do business because I was like, I'm not interested in, she had like 20 rental properties, and I'm like, I was getting ready to leave town. I was like, I'm just not interested in spending the time. I'm going to have to charge you a fee. And she's like, actually begging me.
It's good to be Travis.
But it's one of those
hard
things.
Knock life for Travis.
When we got talking to her, she was having issues with her agent who worked for a captive company, and they just were feeding her information because they didn't feel like she would know any better. And within the first 3 minutes of the phone call, I gave her information that they couldn't give her. So from that point forward, it was, I want you to do this. And it's just one of those things that the trust was already built because she read the reviews online, and reviews are a critical piece of being found. So not only do you need to, set up your Google My Business, you need to get reviews on there.
Does the map pack, like beyond the reviews we talk about, beyond the kind of consistency in the postings on the different websites that they're kind of data checking you on, right? The trust score that you mentioned, what other things are going to help, if there are going to help that you rank in that map pack? Like, are there other things that can be done by the agency owner, or are those three things that we just talked about so important that they need to be on everyone's weekly list?
One of the biggest things I see people not doing is within the Google My Business homepage, you have categories. And so you get a list, you get to tell Google what type of business you are. Insurance agent, insurance broker are the most common that I see, which is great. Yeah, we are. But also Google gives you the space to, I think there's 10 of them.
Yeah.
They let you do 8 or 10 listings. And so there's also auto insurance agency, home insurance agency, life insurance agency.
I think I have health insurance under mine. I've never sold health insurance in my life.
Yeah, health insurance. I think dental insurance is even on there. There's income protection on there. So list every category that you can do, whether you do it or not. If you can do it, list it in there because people are searching for that stuff. And if you're only listing insurance agent, you're cutting your throat for all that other stuff that you could be found for. So that's one of the biggest things that people don't realize they can do more than 1 or 2. Go until that thing maxes you out.
How big are reviews as far as a weight? How big are reviews weighted in how you're found? Because I'll be honest, like I do some searching, and I'll look for mine. I'm like, I'm number 3 on there, and I've got these reviews, and 1 and 2 have got like 1 review.
Right.
Well, it's so the map pack is based on proximity. First and foremost, they want you to get, because Google did a study that said, okay, if somebody's searching on here for this topic, obviously they're wanting it fairly quickly because they're searching on your mobile phone, which is where most of it is. Mm-hmm. And how can we get them this quality service as quickly as possible? So they're trying to get you to the closest place. So there's more than just the review. It is location factored from where you're at to where the business is. So that's why some of them may be ahead of you. The
I'll be honest, none of them are better than me. I'm just being honest.
Of course not. Well, I look at how we're ranked, and I'm like, I don't even know why these people have listings
or licenses.
Sure. True story. So it's one of those things that the reviews will help. It is a ranking factor, but from the consumer standpoint, who are they more likely to call? The person that has 1 or the person that has 42?
So is there a way, let's just take, I live in a little bedroom community of 18,000 people, right? But 30 minutes away is, San Francisco, and the other direction is Sacramento, right? Those towns have millions of people in them. Is there a way, outside of me opening up a post office box, is there a way for me to try to rank in those cities in the map pack, even though I'm not, I'm further, like there's a closer agent. Is there a way for me as an agency to try to get ahead of that?
That would be a long shot. I mean, you could if they were just that bad, but being that far away would probably be pretty difficult in our industry. For other industries, it might be a little bit easier if there's less competition. But with that much competition between here and there, that would be kind of tough.
Is the only solution is to open up a office location there?
Yeah, because then you could do a secondary location, and you could try to rank in additional cities. But with the major metropolitan area, it's pretty difficult for most people to get into that kind of stuff.
Does recency or activity play in at all? Like, for instance, if you're not logging in actively into your My Business account, or if you're not doing things to try and spur people to get to your listing or to your website, will that have any effect on the map pack?
Well, Google, as far as Google's trust score, I have a theory that the more active you are, the more they trust you, and not necessarily that you're more trustworthy. It's more of you're still open in business type of deal. And so the lack of activity would be a signal that you're not in business anymore.
So like updating the hours, doing things where they responding to their emails where they're like reminding you, hey, are you open Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah.
July 4th. That type of stuff can give them indications like, yeah, this is still an actively run business.
Or this guy or gal actually just likes us. What's good.
Right.
They like us, so we're gonna like them back.
Right. Google likes all of the above.
Yeah.
They just want you interacting. Because without that, they can't sell more ads.
Yeah.
So the more accurate information they can serve up, the more money they're going to make, or opportunity to make.
So the Google, like, once you set up a Google My Business page, you're going to start also getting coupons in the mail for like $300, $100 or whatever here in AdWords. Have you had any success on that AdWord front? Have you ever taken up on one of those offers? Because that seems to be a byproduct of kind of creating that business account, is now I get mail bound and offered those. There you go.
Got one today.
Exactly. Right. I just like them for the rubber cement. I play with the rubber cement, but I didn't know, like, does that have an effect? Like, is our overall interaction and use really make a difference in this map pack? Because you're right. The map pack makes a big difference. And to be honest, I can't for the life of me figure out why the heck 1 week I'm 2 and the next week I'm 7 and I'm buried.
Because the internet changes.
Damn.
And that's I mean, the internet is always in flux. And so there's things, Google rolls out an update at minimum once a month, sometimes twice a month. And so you could see your rankings spike or drop and then bounce back later. It's a constantly moving target. There's no set in stone. You're not going to get here and plant a flag and always stay there. It's going to move. And the other thing, what people don't understand is when you're searching on your phone or you're searching on your web browser, if you're logged in as yourself, Google remembers your search history. And so then it tries to
curate the experience for you.
Yeah. And so if you've searched for yourself before, and then you go look and see how your rankings are, Google's going to be like, oh, they like this business. And so they're going to naturally put you up higher in the search when you're searching for yourself. So you kind of have to do the incognito, like clear your, the cache out of your computer so that you can try to get a fresh look at what you're doing. Because some people are like, oh, I'm doing great. And I'm like, when I search, I don't see you. It's because they've searched for themselves and they're only seeing their own search history when it comes up. So
wait, Google knows what we search for? Oh my God. I got to delete some cookies.
Yeah. Yeah. Delete more than just a few.
So have you, let me ask you this, because we've started off the conversation automation. We've kind of moved it into the local SEO. Is there anything that you're doing in your business where you're actually tying the two together, where you've seen local SEO or you've done some automation to kind of either remind yourself or establish something that kind of helps you or indirectly pushes your local SEO and improves it as you're, running your business? I'm
always playing with stuff, trying out new methods, do new theories. And I actually started talking with Nick a little bit about it, but I am getting ready to launch a local business insurance, smaller brand, but doing it through SEO, and then potentially, amping some paid ads to it later. That way I can, generate and focus on just small business insurance and try to build it that way and see if I can't get some organic type of search volume, propel it a little bit with some paid ads, and then apply some automation and some follow-up to it in the long run. So that's something that I've been playing with here in the last 3-4 weeks, trying to work out what that actually looks like. But that's one of the things that I'm currently testing.
So, and then one of the things, Travis, I wanted to kind of bring out, maybe I tried this on the earlier question, but I'm going to take you back to the automation. One of the things when we spoke at Innovation.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, you're welcome. One of the things we talked about at Innovation was, that same kind of sandbox question. And you said to me that you should try something internal facing if you want to automate something, like do a reminder set for yourself or do a referral partner follow-up. That's not necessarily going to be external facing. And I know you tonight you're like, just jump in feet first, but I thought that was actually a comforting response to me, because I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Because if I mail bomb me, I just can delete that whole mess of emails. Or if I forget, I'm just doing the same level of bad follow-up on referral sources that I always do. So have you seen, or do you have any processes that you've developed inside, and not necessarily asking you to lay them out, but at least just giving the topic or the piece that you've done internally to remind yourself or your team to do stuff that somebody might try as their first step, to say, hey, I'm just going to remind myself to make this phone call or do this piece. And what are a couple of those options to be? Like maybe that first toe dab, that client, they're not going to worry about their premium being affected by it or their book size.
Well, what I meant earlier by jumping in feet first was just getting going. I didn't necessarily mean, start, firing stuff off to your clients. It's always good to test stuff on yourself. I have a test account. I actually have several test accounts inside of my systems. So, if I get an email that says, hey, clown, or test monkey, I know I'm testing it. It's my test sequence.
Oh, that's usually for my wife when I get those.
She might have subscribed to my automation. But, that way I can identify it when it comes in instead of with my own personal name, and you run yourself through it. And then one of the things that I did, we did, it was I can't remember what the task was. It hasn't actually triggered, but I actually used it to help one of my staff members become more efficient, because she was always late on doing certain tasks. And so I triggered an internal communication to her on a daily basis that said, hey, these tasks need to be done. And it was just a reminder that says, okay, check the support box, check. And it gave her a rundown of the 3 basic things that she needed to tackle first thing in the morning. And that way it wasn't to where she'd be like, oh, I forgot. Well, no, you didn't, because the system told you every day. And I had it run Monday through Friday. You got an email. So that's one simple thing that you can do internally. You can just have it set up to where you shoot yourself a reminder for whatever that task is that you want to make sure gets done. There's so many different ways that you could do that. A lot of people use Slack and we use Microsoft Teams, and instead of sending emails, you can have that message sent inside of your communication channel, whether it's through that or through email. Send reminders on doing that kind of stuff, and you could find yourself building a habit to where eventually maybe you don't need it.
I think one thing we haven't talked about, and I see it as and maybe we've touched on it a little bit, is I think a lot of people incorrectly, and tell me your thoughts on this, they incorrectly glamorize the mechanism and the platform above the kind of the processes, right? So you have these heavyweights, you have Infusionsoft, you have Salesforce, you have ActiveCampaign, you have all these different players, right? And they're just mechanisms, they're just platforms. That's all they are. They're just fancy calculators. They act. You put information in, they spit information out. But I see it as a big problem that people glamorize these platforms, and there are people I know who I think have been on every platform, and it's right. It's I've been on 2, right, and so
Right.
but I think that becomes the bigger hindrance to people actually growing, and move. Like they just romanticize Infusionsoft, they just romanticize ActiveCampaign, and they forget about what they're trying to do and why they're doing it. I tell people all the time, I don't care if you use Infusionsoft, ActiveCampaign, Salesforce. I don't care if you have an automated set of carrier pigeons. Whatever is going to actually, like, it's the same thing with the management system. The best platform is the one that you're actually going to use, and the one that you're actually going to use consistently, and
Right.
whatever's going to fit your style, right? It does. They're just brands and labels after this. They're just fancy looking, UIs and interfaces. But can you talk about that and kind of what you see? Because obviously you're in this world a lot more. Talk about that and maybe how people kind of that's their own detriment.
It is a problem because over the past year or so, I've had the pleasure of talking to probably, I would say, at least 100 agency owners. And one of the first questions that they bring up is, which one should I get? Should I get Infusionsoft or ActiveCampaign? And I'm like, I don't know. What are you trying to do? And at the end of the day, the conversation ends up going back to, okay, so I think you're telling me I need to write down my processes. And we didn't even talk about software program, because you got to know where you're going to know where you need to go, which road you're going to travel down. So figuring out which tool you're going to use before you know what you're going to build is kind of, it is really difficult. And then when people do fantasize about, oh, this one's going to solve all my problems, this is my dream program.
It sounds like you have more problems if that's if that's going to solve your problems, you've got bigger problems.
Right. Because it's not anyone's software is going to do it. You have to have the processes in place first, and you have to know how to put it together. Use what you have, and that's when we first started talking. That's why, just get a simple contact calendar link on your page. A lot of people can do a lot of stuff with just straight up Outlook, because there's so many things inside of Outlook that you can do, because it has a task manager in there, and you can mark things as complete. You can create templates. If you don't want to fully automate it, you can have a semi-automated just by having templates there that you can trigger. Use what you have. Don't go out and try to solve the world's problems by picking this platform or that platform, because I've used them all. They're all good for a certain reason, and the reality is none of them are actually built for insurance. So there's still some major limitations. Going back to the Frankenstein comment, we're using these things outside of what they should be using for, because they're sales and marketing, but they're not insurance marketing. We're in a unique industry, so we're makeshifting these programs to do things that the original creators didn't intend for them to do. Can they do some of the stuff that we want? Yeah, sure. But that's not what most people should focus on.
Right. Don't focus on the mechanism, and don't focus on the platform. I mean, this is so true in so many different regards. I think this is the weakness that the trap that I've fallen into numerous times, and I continue to bite, to step my toe on it sometimes. Is it doesn't matter what the platform is. What matters is that you actually are consistently gonna do something. That's what really matters. And so, man, I want. Look, we've been on here for an hour. I want to be very respectful of your time. I want to say thank you. I think this was long overdue. We should have had you on a long time ago. But
that's Nick's fault. He doesn't like you.
Things happen.
No, I like Travis a lot. But is there, Adam? Do you have any parting words?
No, I just wanted to say thanks. I really appreciate it, Travis. Obviously, I think you got a lot to offer, and I appreciate you sharing it with us. And despite Nick getting your way, I think you provided some value. If you're
on, I'll make a plug for it. So if you're on this call, or you're on this episode, and you're not in Travis's Facebook group, the Automated Insurance Agency,
independent agency.
Go in there. I mean, honestly, like if you want to just geek out and nerd out on automation stuff, like that is that is a great platform, You run a great group there, to have those discussions. You guys are all very helpful. You guys do weekly calls, even like you guys. man, you guys go pretty deep on stuff. You go a lot deeper than I would ever want to go, but you know, you guys are consistently doing that stuff and providing a level of support to people in the group.
Well,
For free.
there's obviously a lot of guys in there that know a lot, and I would say several of them know a lot more than I do, because I always like trying to surround myself with people smarter than me. And there's several people that started in the last year or two that were like, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but they just hung in there and, you know, tried to learn. And so now they're like speaking nerd language. But then there's people that are just joining. I added another couple people this past week that some of them don't even have a website. So it's like we have the whole spectrum. No matter if you're a beginning person or advanced, there's room to ask questions in there.
For sure.
And they're super helpful. I mean, I asked a pretty rudimentary question, and I got several guys who gave me answers. It was. I think it was booting up a computer, how we do that, but it was meant they were willing to help, so it was nice. They're really great. Another plug for it.
Appreciate it.
So Travis, thank you so much, man, for being on the call. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for contributing what you do in IAOA, and you know, you rightfully so should bear your trophy with pride, and hopefully you take it out everywhere you go.
But, I do. I just wish it had like a necklace so I could just wear it like
a
Flavor Flav.
Yeah, like a Flavor Flav. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. We should do that for next year. All right, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of COLLABCAST. It will be live as soon as we hit end broadcast, and you guys can go back and rewatch it as many times as humanly possible. Memorize the words, and we will see you guys on the next episode.